Wisconsin's first major action took place at Farmington, Mississippi in May 1862, where they were outflanked and forced to retreat. During the battle, legend has it that Old Abe and his bearer, a man named James McGinnis, were ordered to the rear for protection. During a Confederate artillery barrage, many of the men around the Eagle ducked for cover, though McGinnis realized that they were out of range and stayed standing upright. However, Old Abe mimicked the other men, hopped off his perch, and laid on the ground. McGinnis is said to have picked him up and put him back on his perch, only to have the eagle hop off again and lay down. When the bombardment ended and the men began rising, Old Abe is said to have jumped back onto his perch and flapped his wings to show his readiness. At the Battle of Corinth in October 1862, a Confederate bullet severed the leather cord holding Old Abe to his perch, and the eagle was set loose on the battlefield. Now, you probably all know that tales often grow taller through the years, and this is no exception. After the war, as people wrote reminiscences, some said that Old Abe soared over the Confederate lines performing aerial reconnaissance. Others said that he delivered messages between Union officers, that he stole secret war plans and maps by swooping down on Confederate officers, or that he rallied Union troops by soaring over them and giving his war cry. In reality, Old Abe's freedom was very short-lived. Eagle bearer David McLean physically caught the eagle in his arms and carried him away from danger, but not before Old Abe lost a few wing and tail feathers to enemy bullets. Following this battle at Corinth, the officers of the 8th decided to clip Old Abe's wings to prevent a similar incident in the future. McLean resigned his post as eagle bearer in protest of the procedure. This is one of my favorite pictures of Old Abe. It's probably the best one. You can see exactly what it would have looked like when they marched into battle. You can see in the bottom right that this was taken near Vicksburg in 1863. So Old Abe did have some close calls, and he was definitely a target for Confederate soldiers. Several accounts state that Confederate General Sterling Price put a bounty on Old Abe during one battle, telling his men that the eagle was worth more to Union morale than a whole brigade or a dozen flags. With that in mind, it is amazing that Old Abe escaped his service relatively unscathed. His closest brush with death came during the siege of Vicksburg in 1863. During some skirmishing, a Confederate bullet traveled down the eagle's neck and chest, removing feathers along its path and leaving a small hole in the webbing of his left wing. Most Union soldiers signed up for 3 years of service, after which they could choose to re-enlist or else be mustered out and return home. Soldiers who re-enlisted received a furlough to return home for a short time before beginning their new term of enlistment. In early 1864, the men of the 8th Wisconsin began wrestling with this question of re-enlistment. A large number chose to re-enlist, earning the furlough back home, and Old Abe accompanied the men back to Wisconsin in June 1864, where he visited Madison, Eau Claire, and Chippewa Falls. He returned to the field with the men at the end of their furlough, which was the end of July 1864, and many of the men who had remained behind were surprised to see that his head feathers had turned white while he was in Wisconsin. A little over a month later, the men of the 8th Wisconsin who chose not to re-enlist prepared to muster out and return to Wisconsin for good. As a group, the 8th Wisconsin decided that Old Abe should return home with them, fearing that his good luck might end and he could be wounded or killed in a future battle. John Hill, who's pictured here, was the last eagle bearer for Old Abe, and he carried Old Abe into Wisconsin Governor James Lewis's office on September 26, 1864. Old Abe was accepted into state custody, and an eagle department was formed to care for the bird in a suite in the Capitol that included 2 rooms and a custom bathtub.